actually recording this time?
Yes.
All right. I'm from Dog Creek Farms, as you can see here. My name is Grant, and I wanted to talk about a little bit of the beekeeping class I learned from down with Josh and Megan at Willow Wood Farm. They were a great help. Want to talk about some expectations, what you should know, and what you should do if you want to try and get into bees. One very important thing is you want to make sure you have a good docile bee species to start with. There are a large few you can pick from, but probably the safest bet would be Italians. They're probably the most docile. However, that has the double-edged sword of meaning they don't produce as much, but it's much better to deal with a type of bee that won't sting you immediately. It's also important to not get, even later down the line when you start working with Russians, Caucasians, whatever it may be, not to get bees that are too aggressive, because if they're too aggressive, they'll try and they can end up swarming a small child or a dog, and even end up killing it if they get too far. But you know, as long as you are careful and you work with a good type of bee, that shouldn't happen, hopefully. Worst that could happen would probably be you getting stung a few times, as long as you take precaution. In order to do that, you'd want to wear a good suit. I believe he said Bee Mate on Amazon would be a good idea. They have good breathable suits, but still protect you, because they can have issues if the zippers aren't well made. It is important to not have too high of expectations for your hives, because it is very common to lose a hive, lose half a hive, lose a third of a hive, whatever it may be. Maybe you'll lose all your bees within a year, and that can be very discouraging. However, you just have to keep with it until you can really find your groove, find out what's perfect for your area, what's good for your bees, and that should allow you to eventually get your production underway. It was also told to, while you're getting your hive established, you don't want to expect too much production from your bees, because they're still getting used to it. They're still building their hive. They're still building the wax they use to, hold their larvae and eventually hold their honey. So, you don't want to really rush them through that, especially when you're just making one. Later on, when you have built up larvae, you can deal with it. However, in the beginning. Another very important thing is you don't want to take bad advice. I know it's kind of funny coming from me, who hasn't even raised bees yet, but he said a very common thing that can lead to many hives being lost is kind of learning from people who aren't don't have that much expertise, and that means they end up passing around their mistakes if they haven't learned a bad yet, and that can really, kind of drag you down, kind of compounding the bad advice. Which, you can probably fix by just using a variety of sources. Don't just use one group. Make sure you ask a professional. Josh, like I said, down at Willow Wood Farm, actually said if you email him, he can give some good advice, because he's been raising bees for a long time. One important thing is you want to make sure that they're well heated, but not too well heated, because if they're too hot, they'll think it's hot outside as well. One example he gave was if you, for example, heat the hive itself, they'll think it's hot outside and they'll end up freezing to death when they fly out. So you want to kind of just let the hive heat itself normally. They'll be able to do their thing, and that will be best for production. Also, you don't want too much or too little space. Too much space will mean that there's a lot of area for infections or small things that can really kill bees. Mites, things that really kind of ruin hives. They can hide in those large areas you leave empty. So you kind of want bees to just have as much room for what they can work with. But if they have too little room, they'll end up swarming, which will mean the queen bee will lay a few queens that, queen larvae, and then once one of them queens hatch, she'll just take half the bees, then fly away and try and find another hive, which can be good if you're trying to transfer bees, or I don't know, maybe steal them from your neighbor, but make sure you don't do that. It's also good to make sure you know if there are any major pesticides in your area, because while bees are flying out, the drones will fly out in 3-mile circumferences of the hive. and they'll look for things to bring back in order to make honey, or mate with other queens, etc. The queen will actually fly out farther, but that's more to mate with drones and have more eggs. You can actually, if a hive is getting restless, you can usually tell if it's getting too loud, getting more aggressive. It seems like everything's more less systematic than it usually is. You can actually force a swarm, which will then, it'll be able to usually make the bees happier, and overall probably be better for not losing your bees or ending up losing them to some other place. I would say that's mostly it. You can, of course, learn more. Like I said, Josh and Megan, Willow Wood Farm, they're a great help, have great lessons. I greatly advise it. I wanted to say thanks for watching, and we plan on making more videos in the future, maybe, hopefully with me in them, unless I get replaced. Usually with dog training, maybe gunsmithing, blacksmithing, stuff like that. And that should mostly be it.